Greetings and welcome to the Saco School Board meeting for Wednesday, May 24, 2023. Call this meeting to order at 2 minutes after 5 p.m. Let the record reflect that all school board members are present with the exception of school board member Truman, who's been excused, and school board member Gale, who's running a little bit late. With that, I'd like to invite you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much. Item 3 on the agenda is a very special item, and Superintendent Ray has some names and some comments to go with those special retirement gestures. So, Superintendent Ray.
All right, thank you very much, and welcome everybody to the meeting. Glad that we have a good crowd for a good reason here tonight, because if we didn't have a retirement and this many people were in the crowd, it means I did something wrong and you were unhappy about that. Probably still think I did something wrong and you may still be unhappy, but we're here to celebrate 4 employees who, again, positives and negatives, are celebrating a special moment in their lives with their retirements from the Saco School Department. For all of you who are retiring, please know that Maine state law only requires you to be unemployed from the school department for 30 days of a wait period before you come back and, say, drive an athletic trip or help sub or do any of those things. So just remember that 30 days is all you have to stay away, and we would love to have you come back. But as we get to this piece, we're going to call up the director or principal from a building to talk a little bit about the employee, and we have I'll have a gift for you, and you're welcome to come up and say something or stay seated, and I'll find you. But I first would like to call Wendy LeBlanc, the principal of Fairfield School.
Good evening. Oh, wow. Good evening, everyone. I'm Wendy LeBlanc, principal at Fairfield School, and tonight I have the honor of celebrating the retirement of Mary Bishop. Mary is currently a literacy intervention ed tech at Fairfield and has been with our school department for 11 years. Though I've only known Mary for 1 school year, it's easy to recognize that she is loving, thoughtful, reliable, and a hardworking person. Mary goes out of her way to get to know you. I'm pretty sure she's the first person to ask me how my weekend was and if my children were sick, to check in to see if they're feeling better. And she clearly reads all of my weekend and monthly newsletters, so that's awesome. Mary and some of the other interventionists are in the portable located behind our school, and even though she has the longest distance to walk, she's always on time, she's reliable, she's well known for being all dressed up in her parka and everything for duties and assignments, and just happy to be there. Just recently, I was walking through the building during one of our extended days, and Mary was seeing a group of students just taking advantage of every second that she had to deliver instruction. She seeks these opportunities on her own to help kids and her team, and she's always doing it with a smile and a positive attitude. When I asked Mary's teammates about her, they shared the same statements: hardworking, being one of the first people to show up, being easy to work with, collaborative, and always willing to help out. These statements describe the Mary that I've gotten to know in the last 9 months. I'm very happy and support Mary with her retirement. She's not here tonight because she chose the book club over her principal, and we've talked about that, but it will be a loss for our school. I asked Mary how she felt about retirement, and she said she had mixed feelings. She's excited about her future, but she's very sad to leave her Fairfield family. Mary, I'm gonna make her watch this video later. Thank you for your years of service as an educator. I wish you a wonderful retirement, and she has already promised she would come back and sub.
Good evening, I'm April Noble, the principal over at CK Burns, and tonight I have the honor of recognizing Nancy Carroll. She too is an ed tech who works at CK Burns School. She is not here tonight because she did not want to be honored in any special or over-the-top way, and that really just exudes kind of Nancy in a nutshell. Nancy is new to CK Burns this year, but previous to that, she spent 15 years as an educator in both the Cape Elizabeth schools and at the Scarborough schools, and she taught in a functional life skills capacity. So as you can imagine, with her skill set coming over to Burns this year as an ed tech, she was invaluable in our Strides program. Immediately, we have a new teacher in that program as well. Immediately, they almost became co-teachers. While she was under an ed tech contract, she was always there to help support and guide and help make decisions and give her advice. She stays longer than she's expected, she comes earlier than is expected, and she really has just fit in with our staff so quickly and seamlessly. So I just want to commend her on her number of years as an educator in the state of Maine. I want to thank her for her year of service at CK Burns, and I'm going to have to remember tomorrow to tell her about that rule about 30 days, because she'll be a wonderful asset should she choose to come back and do some subbing for us. But her experience with students with a similar profile as a teacher has been really beneficial for all the students and all the teachers in the Strides program. So congratulations to Nancy Carroll.
Yeah, good evening. Jeannie and I have worked with Lucille and Elaine for 15 years or more, and they've been through an SAU, an RSU, Saco Schools standalone unit. They've been through numerous leadership changes. They went through COVID, and from either one of them, we've never had a complaint. They've just shown up and done their work and just been exemplary in their work. So from the bottom of our hearts, I'd like to say thank you both for your dedication, your professionalism, and most of all, for getting our kids home safe. So thank you very much. And like the 30-day deal, if either one of you get bored at any time, you know where we're at. So who's coming up first? Elaine, you go. Elaine, you coming up first for? Oh, sure. Now, anybody we talk to about Lucille, the first thing they say is Lucille is the sweetest person they've ever met.
Yes,
I wouldn't disagree with that, but I would add meticulous and organized. I mean, she's got a list for everything. She keeps track of everything.
Yep, that's right.
I mean, she has probably worked with every staff member in transportation.
And I
She's
love them
done
all.
every
Yep.
run in transportation, and it's just, she's always done it with a smile. I
Thank you.
once thought she might have a twin sister or something running around, because I'd see her all over town walking. And eventually I figured out, no, that's what she does. She walks everywhere.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for being here. I was very surprised and very thankful. And I just want to thank you for having hired me, because I love this job. This is great. I love working with the kids, the bus drivers, the bus aides, my bosses, everybody. I
Well,
couldn't believe it.
We are hoping you come back once in a while,
Oh,
just to keep your
say
little
hi.
brother
Oh,
in
yeah.
step
Yeah.
there, because we have trouble with that, so we're hoping you come back and help us out. Yeah. And we did find out you like bowling, so
Yeah.
good luck, and I
Oh,
hope you get
thank
a
you.
chance to raise your scores and do whatever
yeah.
you need to do while you're
I
bowling.
need that.
And enjoy your retirement. Again,
Thank you very much.
thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all for supporting.
Well, the first thing I have to say is anybody who knows me knows I'm not going to miss an opportunity to say what I want to say.
Okay, all right, you gonna let us go first, or you gonna? Let me start by saying, Elaine is probably the most humble person that I've known in my life. I mean, not many people know that she is the director of Open Hands, Open Hearts. That's an organization that has helped hundreds, if not thousands, of local residents with clothing and household goods. And she just has countless hours in that place and probably countless dollars, because I've seen her go to the store and buy socks and undergarments for kids that needed them. So she also works for the Rotary. I can remember not arguing, but having discussions on whether she could park her bus at the Rotary meetings, because she didn't want to be late for the Rotary meeting or getting back to work. So I'm sure we worked something out.
We did for a while.
We did. I'll definitely miss when we'd have our discussions. She just told you whatever it was we were discussing. She told you like it was. I mean, she didn't hold anything back. She didn't sugarcoat anything. She was always very honest and very forthright, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I'm gonna miss you dearly, and I wish you luck. And I hope you can start your golf tournament up again. That was great.
Start Friday.
Okay, start Friday. Okay.
What I want to say is, when I first came back to this job, not back to this job, I worked as a school bus driver in my younger days. And when I needed a job, the bus driver was going around my neighborhood, and I kept stopping her and saying, "You guys hiring, you guys hiring." So anyway, I got the job. When I got the job, I had two little kids in the front. The bus was wild. And I wanted their attention, and I reached over. You can't fire me now because I'm leaving. I reached over, and I hit one of the kids on the arm like this. Like, he turns around like, "What?" I'm like, "You're not listening to me." And when I did that, I'm like, "Oh, my God, I shouldn't have done that." And it was around Christmas time, and I said, "I'm going to get a bell, and I'm going to ring the bell every time they misbehave." And I never did that, thank God, because they'd probably say, "Remember that crazy bus driver we had?" So that was an experience. And a couple that I think of is when two little kids, 4th and 5th graders, were sitting behind me, and they were arguing about Santa Claus. And I could tell what was coming. So one said he didn't believe in Santa Claus, the other one said yes. And they argued about that, and the 4th grader says, "I'm getting a Nintendo for Christmas, and my parents would never spend $200. And I knew the question was coming is, "Elaine, is there really a Santa Claus?" I said, "Whatever you believe is true." Turned out pretty good to me.
We heard it here. The bus driver is the one that makes that determination.
And one other story is this. One little kid had his backpack got caught in his little girl's hair that was sitting in, and I couldn't undo it. And I kept telling him, "Hold it up so you don't put the weight." I couldn't get it done, so what I did is I went and got the seatbelt cutter, and I just cut her hair. My mother's going to kill me. But she got on the bus the next day, and I said, "Oh, it looks pretty good." And one last thing, I want to compliment Jeannie on everything that she does. She keeps this place going like unbelievable. I don't think anybody could do it the way she does. She can control. She manages everything. The only thing she can't control is the traffic. But you do a marvelous job. Really, you really do.
I think she'd agree we've got a great team, and missing you guys on this team will be.
I may be back, but not within 30 days.
Okay. Hey, Elaine.
Elaine, 60's fine, too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next on the agenda is item 4, approval of the school board meeting minutes dated May 10th, 2023. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Mayor,
School board member Richard?
I move we approve the school board meeting minutes dated May 10th, 2023.
Second.
Thank you. Motion and seconded by school board member Preble. Any discussion? Roll call vote. School board member Archie?
Yes.
School board member Preble?
Yes.
School board member Richard?
Yes.
School board member LaFortune?
Yes.
School board member Gale?
Yes.
School board member Truman? Excuse me, school board member Johnston?
Yes.
And that is 5-6-0, excuse me. Item 5 of the agenda this evening, there are no adjustments to the agenda. And so that brings us on to item 6. There is no correspondence this evening. And that arrives us at item 7, public session. If there's any member of the public who would like to address the school board, please come forward and be heard. With nobody seeking recognition, moving on to item 8 of the agenda, and that is the superintendent's report. Superintendent Ray.
All right, good evening. So there's no awkwardness. You do not have to stay if you don't want to hear the entire meeting. So if you do choose to leave, this would be a great time. I'll pause. You don't have to listen anyway, but I knew that would be coming. Don't worry about that. Okay, good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight. A couple of things is we are in our last 16 days of school, and our last day is Friday the 16th, which will be a half day of school for students and for staff. Just a reminder to everybody who may be watching at home is that Wednesday, the 14th, will be our extended 1-hour day. We'll send out another notice for that, but that is how we made up a couple of those snow days so that we didn't have to come back on the Tuesday of the next week. This summer, we have a ton of work that will be happening around our buildings that we discussed during Finance Committee. But just for the rest of the school committee, just to update you, is that we will have completed this summer probably around 95% of the ventilation work at SMS. We are just leaving a small section in conjunction with being about 95% of the roof will be done. And when we install that last section of HVAC work, we'll then finish that last section, as we didn't want to put the new roof down, wait for the part to come in, rip that back up, etc. At SMS and at Fairfield School, throughout the summertime, through the revolving renovations grant, we will have all exterior doors, or majority of exterior doors replaced. We are also working to add a security feature at SMS that will provide entranceway to the gymnasium, not going through the front lobby of the school, so that we'll kind of have to walk around. And part of that is just as people come in and out of the school, keeping our students from not having to mix with visitors will provide a more safe atmosphere. Additionally, we have received bids to replace the bleachers at SMS, which will occur over the summertime. We'll next start looking at the backboards on some of the sides and the curtain in the middle of that gym, and really taking care of that all at one time. We've had flooring concerns of certain tile work that hasn't been done over time, and we're replacing, I believe, 5 rooms there, while also looking at, since we have all new furniture at the SMS library, new painting there, that it makes sense also to replace the carpet in that room while we're doing everything at one time. So a lot of work this summer. We'll be busy while parallel time of making sure that we're moving ahead on that building projects of ours. For any parents at home, or if we have friends, if you have changed addresses or know that you're going to change addresses, or if you're just someone who's saying, I'm moving to Saco in August and I haven't reached out to the school yet, we need registrations, so please register early. And if it's a change of address, it is so helpful for us to have that now versus 2 hours into the first day of school. And then we're concerned about what busing looks like. As we know, we have the routing system for transportation, which I get it on my phone with my kiddos. It's great. I love it when it pops up and I know the bus is going to be there. But that's all information that has to be set up prior to the start of the school year, or there will be a delay for some families rolling that out. At this time, it appears that our kindergarten and pre-K registrations are very strong, and so we'll have to continue to evaluate that over the summer. For any of you who have been watching the budget process at the state, you'll see a couple of weeks ago, the governor announced that there was going to be an extra amount of money put into our state budget. In that piece was $50 million for the revolving renovation account, which would give us access to priority 1, priority 2 items, meaning air quality, and we will continue to lobby very hard in this round that we get to priority 2, which may help us address windows. Those would be the types of items that we would hope to get to. So more on that to come. And then also finally a reminder for families at home, this tends to be the field trip time of year because you're taking kids out, so watch for those permission slips. Make sure we know what's going on. Our principals send home newsletters, and I know it's easy to be overwhelmed with all the stuff that we have to take in as parents and family members, but this is an important time because sometimes our kids are not always in the building based off field trips. Like tomorrow, I believe we have some of our students going to a Sea Dogs game or things like that. So any questions?
No questions on the superintendent's report. Moving on to item 9, the chair report. Chair Preble.
I don't have anything new to report this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 10, there are no staff reports to review this evening. Brings us to item 11, board subcommittee minutes. The Policy and Personnel Committee meets on June 14th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. Finance and Infrastructure Committee met today at 4 p.m. and the Curriculum Committee met on Monday at 4:30 p.m. Any questions on the minutes for the board subcommittees? Moving on to item 12, old business. There's no old business before the school board tonight, so that brings us to item 13, new business. Item A is a memorandum from Superintendent Ray on new hires. That's been in your packet. Superintendent Ray, does this require action?
Yes, it does.
Thank you. Is there a school board member LaFortune?
I move we approve the nomination of Jacqueline Lyman, school psychologist, Kaylee Tingley, SMS IEP coordinator, Justin Fell, SMS art teacher, and Noah Koch, CK Burns Paths teacher, and issue a contract for the 2023-2024 school year.
Second.
Motion's been made by School Board Member LaFortune, second by School Board Member Archie. Any discussion? Roll call vote. School Board Member Archie?
Yes.
School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richard?
Yes.
School Board Member LaFortune?
Yes.
School Board Member Gale?
Yes.
School Board Member Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Brings us to item B, and that is a memorandum from Superintendent Ray on resignations. Superintendent Ray, it does not see that the board needs to act on these.
So no, the board does not need to act on resignations, and that is a change that we talked about the other day to go to a policy or is in the policy. Historically, you guys have, and so I think that's something that we may, historically we have approved those resignations, which I say we should tonight, but that should be something that the policy committee talks about of whether they want to continue that practice or not.
Thank you. Is there a member of the school board willing to make the motion? School Board Member LaFortune?
Just a question, is the motion related to the names that are in the memorandum we have now?
That is correct.
Okay. So it's just so I understand what the motion is going to be, just that we are accepting,
Accepting the resignations as written.
okay. do they have to be named specifically, or just accept them as written?
You can accept the memo as written.
All right, I move we accept the memo, the resignation memo with the names as written.
Second.
Motion's made by School Board Member LaFortune, seconded by School Board Member Archie. Any discussion on the resignation memo? With no discussion, roll call vote. School Board Member Archie.
Yes.
School Board Member Preble.
Yes.
School Board Member Richard.
Yes.
School Board Member LaFortune.
Yes.
School Board Member Gale.
Yes.
And School Board Member Johnston.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. That brings us to item C, which is a school board meeting calendar that was brought up at the last meeting, and I think this is up for approval tonight. Is there a school board member willing to make the motion? School Board Member LaFortune?
Okay, I move we accept the school board meeting calendar as proposed.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Second by School Board Member Richard. Any discussion
Mr.
on
Mayor.
the calendar? School Board Member Gale?
I guess I just want to take a minute here and discuss the school board calendar for next year. I know last year kind of raised some of these issues, and I continue to believe that the 5 o'clock meeting is just not in the interest of full public engagement. Also, in thinking about it a little bit more, I also think that meeting at 5 and having that in the calendar for the rest of the year as we come up on elections, that, I think, could prevent some folks from thinking they want to run because of conflicts in their work schedule and their life schedule. 5 just seems a little early. Doing a little bit of research a couple months ago, I was hard-pressed to find any other school boards that meet at 5. Typically, they're 6. I think there was one, I think Augusta met at around 5:30. So aside from Biddeford and us, I had a hard time finding other school boards meeting at 5. I think if you look around at city councils, there aren't very many, if any, that I know of that meet at 5 as well. So I'm wondering if we can have a discussion about this 5 p.m. meeting and whether we can either have a separate meeting for Saco, or at a very minimum, can we push this to 5:30 on those dates, recognizing the superintendent's busy schedule on these Wednesdays?
School Board Member Gale, would you like to make an amendment to see if there's an appetite to look at the 5:30?
Yeah, I guess so. I'd like to make a motion to amend the school board calendar as presented and change the 5 p.m. 5 p.m. meeting time to 5:30 on those dates.
Amendment has been made by, or offered by School Board Member Gale to move the 5 o'clock meetings to 5:30 for the 2023-2024 school board calendar. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by School Board Member Archie, so now it is open for discussion. School Board Member LaFortune.
So I have, and I'm not going to make a motion for this because it's going to just get really messy if we keep heading down that path. So just from a logistics standpoint, looking at the calendar that we have proposed, the majority of the ones that land in the 5 o'clock slot, or ultimately 5:30 if this motion passes, are, with a couple of exceptions, the second meeting of the month is an alternative approach to just not have a second meeting of the month. I mean, just from the standpoint of the types of business we cover, when we're not in the budget cycle, there isn't really a lot of time-sensitive stuff that comes to the board. That's just an observation.
Do I get a vote on this? Because I'm in favor.
Superintendent Ray, this question was brought up, could there still be enough business done in the one meeting aside from the budget presentations, could you do the business in one meeting, I think is what School Board Member LaFortune was asking, and that might be a way to remove the second meeting, but it needs your expertise to.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you can. I mean, I think we structure meetings, you know, like tonight, I know that Rainey and I traded emails about a presentation and when that would be. And quite frankly, looking at June 14th didn't necessarily seem like the day, and had things been different, I probably would have looked at, you know, had Rainey and I communicated, I would have said, okay, this would have been perfect for the 7 o'clock meeting versus this, but knowing that June 14th wasn't probably going to be a high level of tune-in on a school committee meeting, it felt like this would be the night. I mean, I think what it would allow you to consider, and I want to say this during budget season, no, we need to have 2 meetings. We've had a couple of decent budgets, but we know that we can have some tough ones too. I think another piece that is a little bit challenging that we have for a setup is that we have a charter requirement that requires us to meet with the city council once a month starting in January. What we wind up doing is having a very kind of redundant meeting, which is, and frankly, in my opinion, we kind of waste some people's time that way by hearing the same things. I don't mean that we're wasting, but it's the same information that we've just talked about the week before, because we're trying to prep the school committee for what we're going to talk about at city council. So I do think that we could have a conversation about that. Additionally, one of the things that you could reserve that night for, starting at 5 or 5:30 or 6 o'clock, could be still having your finance committee meeting. Maybe that is the night that you want to have policy committee meeting, and do some of that work, that if you did need to host a school committee meeting, you could do that. I mean, I think there's plenty of different options. I mean, there's some months that we only have one meeting anyway because of holidays. You know, August 23rd, that meeting, that would be a month I would say, yes, we definitely need to have a meeting. Why? Because I need to remind people about transportation, and I need you to officially hire teachers. Those would be what those things is. We're just trying to get contracts out. When you look at, you know, September 27th and October 25th, those may not be times of the year in normal years that we would be doing something. This year on October 25th, I hope that we're having a great meeting talking about the vote for a new school building. So that would be, you know, we would say, yes, let's get together on that one. Let's make sure that we have that. So, Kevin, I do think that's a reasonable suggestion. And I think we could carry out the business.
Any School Board Member Archie, then School Board Member Problem.
I wanted to have more of a discussion about this, and Kevin, I actually really see where you're going with that, and Jeremy, you're definitely not wrong. We definitely are redundant on most of our meetings there during budget season, and I do like the idea of having the subcommittee meetings like kind of all in one. That way, if all of the board members wanted to join, you know, one evening, you know, and we can go over the subcommittee meetings. It's not a bad idea, but what I would request is if we do scrap the 5 o'clock meetings, could we change the time of the 7 o'clock meetings and maybe do it on a different Wednesday than Biddeford, and maybe do like a 6 o'clock, so kind of like we're not trying to shove everything all into one meeting?
Superintendent Ray, I'll look to you to
I know it's a big
advise
ask.
the board of your schedule.
Again, I also have another set of meetings that not having any of this conversation beforehand that has to be talked about. We have a contractual relationship that needs to be worked on. And I will say that this, while nobody loves doing a doubleheader twice a month, there is a situation where I am going to continue to try to do a better job with hitting a few things for my kiddos at nights, based off all of the other meetings. So I think that would be something that we would have to think about. I think that we can have 7 o'clock meetings and change the whole thing. I also could have a conversation with the Biddeford board about what would happen if they started at 6:30 here on our 5:30 meeting. 90% of the time, or probably more than that, we can make that. So I think that it would require further discussion with multiple groups.
School Board Member Archie, any follow-up?
And it's not just Biddeford, I'd also need to consult the Dayton board as well.
No, I completely understand where you're coming from. I just figured if we're going to get rid of a meeting, it would make a little bit more sense to have a little bit more leniency on the start time of the meeting that we do have. And I didn't know if the other boards would be open to maybe them starting a little earlier on those meetings so we could start a little earlier. It's just, this is all up for discussion. I just wanted to point that out.
Do we have anything, Mr. Mayor, do we have anything in the charter about the number of meetings? Does anyone-
The charter only speaks to the school board meetings when it pertains to the finance and budget. So that would be the meetings in January, starting in January and going through to June.
Because that is a consideration for me with the other charter.
School Board Member Preble.
Is it possible to consider maybe Kevin's idea and see a revised calendar to compare the two, to see if that's something we would be interested in, what that would look like if we were to reduce our meetings, just to give us like a visual aspect of it?
So what you could do is you could deal with the amendment that you're currently discussing, the amendment to move to 5:30, and then you, depending on how that goes or however it goes, you could table this until the next meeting.
Okay.
And give your board and superintendent time to review, discuss, and maybe present an alternative calendar based upon the discussions that have had tonight. So that is probably the easiest and simplest way to move forward in the process.
Okay, thank you.
Any further? School Board Member Johnston.
So I'm trying to follow this conversation. We've obviously got a lot of different potential plans in the air. I guess my question would be for the superintendent in terms of this specific amendment to change the meeting time to 5:30. Is that something that would work for you, Mr. Superintendent? At this point in time, do you know?
Clearly, anything can come up that will require a lengthier meeting. Do I think that we could structure things in a way to make that work? Yes. At the same token, I think that we could look at Kevin's idea and structure things that way. I think I have a little bit harder time adjusting to moving one ahead on the same night. That would be a little bit harder for me, but I can look at that, and we can bring back a menu of options next meeting that would allow people to do a comparison.
Okay, thank you. I needed that clarity. I think I did, with all due respect, want to respond to Will's comment that that our current calendar might be discouraging to people in terms of running for the school board office. I guess for me, there's this reality about it's not always going to be convenient for anybody who's on any sort of board, council, or government office. Obviously, your life has to offer enough time to be responsible to most of the meetings that you should go to. But I think that factor alone, you would either have to have a basic ability to attend meetings, or you don't. And if you don't, then as much as you might want to run for an office, you're not going to be able to fulfill your responsibilities. So not sure that, for me, that's a particularly valid argument. Thank you.
Thank you. School Board Member LaFortune?
I was going to suggest the same thing about maybe bringing it back at another meeting. The other thing that I was just going to bring up is that we have policy support for modifying the schedule if a need arises. I like the idea of having the meeting be at a consistent time, and by having just that first 7 o'clock meeting, which is pretty much almost every one of these calendar months has that, it would be consistent not only for us to plan around it, but also to have, maybe people who would not otherwise be able to attend, to be an audience member, also be able to attend the meeting. And my point about the policy is that we, if something were to arise, we have policy support to add a meeting with enough public notice if necessary. And we've done that, probably more than we probably should have in the last few years, whether it was things related to COVID or hiring a superintendent or any other topic that's come up. So we do have that flexibility if we did actually have a need. And I mean, I seem to recall many years ago that when we were doing the budget cycle, we had weeks where we had 2 or 3 meetings in a row just on the budget, like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I definitely am not suggesting doing that, but we have flexibility if we need it. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the amendment only? Again, the amendment only. School Board Member Archie?
Yeah, so I am really glad that you brought that idea up, Kevin. I've been mulling over this for a few months now, as most of you know, and I didn't even consider moving to one board meeting. But I think part of the amendment that Will has presented to us is so it is more feasible for families and parents to come to the board meeting. And I know that my age of children, bedtime is 7 o'clock. So if we're only going to have one meeting a month, I think 7 o'clock is not really the best idea, because we're going to have parents that are trying to put their kids to bed and want to watch the meeting at home or come to the meeting. And then, there have been nights where we've had a 7 o'clock meeting, we've been here till 10:30. So that's with 2 meetings a month. I personally would like to see, if we go to one meeting a month, see if we can work with the other committees to see if we can have an earlier start time. That way, we don't feel rushed, and then people can still come to the meeting and then make it home for their kids' bedtime. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the amendment only? And the amendment is to move the second meeting from 5 o'clock to 5:30. Any further discussion? School Board Member
Just a
LaFortune.
procedural question. So in terms of getting to a place where we're thinking about having this go back to the drawing board till the next meeting, is the best approach to withdraw motions and seconds, or to vote it all the way through, knowing that we're going to vote in the negative?
Procedurally, would deal with the amendment, however the board sees fit, and then table the current proposed calendar in favor of an alternative at the next meeting. Because you don't want to turn down the calendar, because I'm not sure of your policies of whether you can take up same business in the same year or same calendar year or same term. So I'd have to look at those policies. But the easiest way would just be a motion to table, and then you table it till the next meeting. And then you can bring it back and then deal with the business. School Board Member Archie.
Jeremy, is there a way that we could get kind of a rough draft as to what we are talking about with these amendments for the next meeting?
Yes, I'll get to work on those, and we'll
Okay,
have
if
that
you could do that,
plenty
then
of time.
I'll put a motion into table.
First, have to deal with the amendment. Once we deal with the amendment, then you can motion to table the main item as amended or as not amended.
Okay, so table the amendment.
School Board Member Gill.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, just one procedurally, then at the next school board school board meeting, we would have to make a decision on it?
You would have options provided by the superintendent, and then you could either,
Table it again, or?
you could table it again if you
Okay.
had to, or you
All right.
could approve one of the other options, or you could approve the
Yep.
same one that's been put forward to you tonight.
Yep, okay.
So on the amendment only, and the amendment is just to move the second meeting from 5 o'clock to 5:30.
So I'll withdraw my second.
You're going to withdraw your second on the amendment?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second on the amendment? On the amendment only? The amendment fails for lack of a second. Back to the main motion, now as free of amendments. School Board Member Archie.
I would like to put a motion in to table this.
School Board Member Archie has made a motion to table. Is there a
Second.
second? Second by School Board Member Preble. Roll call vote. School Board Member Archie.
Yes.
School Board Member Preble.
Yes.
School Board Member Richard.
Yes.
School Board Member LaFortune.
Yes.
School Board Member Gale.
Yes.
School Board Member Johnston.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0 to table until the next meeting. Moving on to item D, school construction update. Superintendent Ray.
All right. So Meg and I will meet again tomorrow morning with Oak Point. We're really kind of a little bit in a holding pattern until we hear back from the Department of Transportation on the work that we had reported out last time. In our schools and around the community, there are maps available that we've shown here. So if people have thoughts about those, I think it's just it can be difficult for people who haven't necessarily followed the process from start to finish to understand, like, so why is that room 800 square feet? And when you're looking at a state-funded building, because that is what their formula allows. But when you look at a pre-K classroom, it's 1,000 square feet. And so I think that's always something that can be challenging, is that people sometimes just don't know that there are, for a state construction project, there's a lot of requirements that are there along the ways of how much square footage a gym will be, or how much square footage the library will be. And so you follow those formulas a little bit, and that, is how you get to the construction of a building in a square footage piece. So those are around. We continue to, I would say, hopefully very soon, you guys will start to see more of what an outside of a building will begin to look like, as they're starting to add those levels and starting to look at the landscape features. A lot of conversation still about play space and all of those pieces, but our big hurdle is the next feedback from the Department of Transportation and our responses from our consultant to the DOE.
Thank you, Superintendent Ray. Any discussion or questions for Superintendent Ray on the school construction projects? School Board Member Preble.
Superintendent Ray, could you review for me again where the boards are located for the public's knowledge? I know they were at the schools, I believe, but I don't know if they were elsewhere in the community.
I'm sorry, they're at the schools. I believe there's one downstairs here at City Hall. And I've got to get a couple to Chris Stryker, because we want to put them at the Little League field out there. We have those made. So they're in our schools. They're here. I think I have another set that I wanted to try to get out into a busy place in the summertime, and probably the rec department, just because they'll have a lot of people in and out this summertime as people drop off for summer care.
Any thoughts at the transportation center maybe is a good spot for some of the boards too, for the new schools? I just know there's a lot of traffic, foot traffic in the transportation center.
Yeah, I think we can consider that piece. I just would want to make sure that we're putting those with places where that is local traffic for people who may or may not have kids coming to school.
School Board Member Gale.
And following up on that, do we have plans to place one at the library for the summertime too?
we certainly can do that. I hadn't thought about that place.
No further discussion. Moving on to item E, and we're going to have a Thornton Academy presentation from Headmaster Menard. Yeah.
I was just grabbing some extra documentation. Is there an extra one of these for School Board Member Truman? Oh, okay, we have one. Thank you. Just making sure we get all the information.
Well, good evening. Thank you for having us tonight. Let me just begin by extending congratulations to the recent retirees and certainly thanking them for their service to our Saco students and families. My name is Randy Menard. I've been a classroom teacher and an administrator at Thornton Academy for 28 years. I've had the privilege of serving as the headmaster for the last 11 years. I grew up in Saco. I graduated from Thornton Academy. My wife and I have raised our 2 children here in Saco. They went to Saco schools, had a fantastic experience, and they went off to Thornton Academy, and one is off to college. I'm joined here today by my colleagues, Carol Taranko, who is the Associate Head of School, and Anne-Marie Swenson, who is our CFO, and you'll be hearing from them shortly. Before I begin, I'd like to invite all of you to our commencement ceremony, our graduation ceremony, which is just around the corner. That's on June 4th. It's on a Sunday. It's 1 o'clock outside in Hill Stadium. We'll certainly send all of you a formal invitation by the end of the week, and we will be praying for good weather. If it does rain, and I'm knocking on wood that it does not, but if it does rain, we have a rain date. We'll do it on Monday evening in Linnell Gymnasium. I'd also like to welcome the opportunity to give all of you on the board a tour of the campus. If you've never been on campus, or if it's been a while, I'd be happy to do that at your convenience. The last time we were invited to present here, it was pre-COVID, and it's been a little while, so certainly appreciate the opportunity to be back here. Our existing contract between the Academy and the city articulates a number of data points that we present to you, and we will certainly do that, and then we're going to add some other information that we hope you find interesting, and certainly invite you to ask questions at any point as we present this evening. So I'm going to just flip through here, if this works, table of contents, and then we'll go to our first slide, which is on page 3, and just show you some data on Saco enrollments. And you can see those numbers there in front of you. This is all based on October 1st counts, enrollment counts, and for consistency, we're going to talk, whenever we talk about enrollment here, it will be October 1st. Understand that enrollment, as it does in K-8, can change from day to day. Generally, the enrollment tends to go down a little bit as we get through the school year. An interesting fact, so you see 869 Saco students on October 1st. 5 years ago, in the 2017-2018 school year, we had 969 students at Thornton Academy. We have 100 fewer Saco students at TA today than we did just 5 years ago. As we look ahead, certainly as we plan, we look at the projections from pre-K through 8, and we're anticipating that next year's Saco enrollment will be flat or may even go down slightly. Slide 2 just gives you a little perspective of the enrollment at Thornton Academy. You can see in this pie chart that the area shaded in yellow or gold is our Saco enrollment, and this is school-wide population grades 6 through 12, and you can see that Saco comprises about 58% of our students. In the maroon section, you can see Dayton, about close to 12%, Arundel, about 8%, boarding students, again, close to 12%, and then what we call our other private students who pay day tuition from surrounding communities make up another 9.5% of our student population. Total high school population was on October 1st, 1,320, and our middle school population was about 178 students. I just want to talk a little bit about, you have a program of studies, and certainly welcome you to look at that and get a better sense of what we offer for our curriculum. As you can imagine, we're a fairly large, comprehensive high school. Just want to talk about a couple of things that are unique about TA. The first bullet point, the fact that we offer 47 offerings and what we call 26 AP or advanced placement courses. That's a national curriculum, universally recognized as perhaps the most rigorous courses in high schools in America today. It's college level work, and many of our students are able to, as they are in other high schools, are able to earn college credit while they are in high school. We also offer 6 languages. You can see those: Chinese, Arabic, Latin, Spanish, French, and German, and those are 4-year sequences, so every student at Thornton Academy has the opportunity to take 4 years of Mandarin, 4 years of Arabic, and in most of these cases, they can take what we call a core, or an honors level, or even an AP level at any of those languages. We also are very proud of our arts offerings, performing and visual arts, over 35 courses in music and dance, visual performances, movie making, etc. We do have a couple of articulation agreements, one with UMaines College of Engineering. We penned that maybe a half a dozen years ago. We're proud of the fact that about 5 years ago, we had 2 Saco students who were able to enroll into UMaines College of Engineering with sophomore status. And we also have a similar agreement with the University of New England. And the last bullet point, we are proud of the fact that we've been recognized as an Apple Distinguished School, and you can see the years from 2016 to 2024, and that's generally given to schools who have demonstrated innovation and excellence, primarily in the use of technology in instruction. There are probably 2 or 3 or 4 other schools in the state of Maine, and I think there's about 400 schools nationwide to receive that designation. And the next slide, I mentioned the AP courses earlier. You can see those 26 AP courses that we offer. There's 25 on the list. Physics 1 and 2 are 2 separate exams. We're proud of the fact that we offer more AP opportunities than any high school in the state. And we have some data there this year for the spring of '23. We had 272 students, took 485 AP exams, and they just finished those exams up last week. So when you look at, they're primarily offered to juniors and seniors. There are a few, 1 or 2 courses where perhaps a student can take it take an AP class as a sophomore, but close to 40% of our juniors and seniors take an AP exam, which is slightly above the national average. One of the things Carol will talk about scores and our AP scores, and we're proud of how our students do. But the other primary reason that we offer this AP curriculum is that we want students to stretch. We want students to challenge themselves and know that they are capable of doing college-level work. The next set of slides is going to be presented by Carol, and then I'll stop back up here.
Good evening. Thanks for having us. Again, my name is Carol Tarenko. I'm the Associate Head of School at TA. I'm going to share a little bit about some faculty and student accomplishments, talk a little bit about test scores, some of the support programs that we have, and I'd like to start talking about our faculty. We have 83 full-time equivalent upper school teachers, 70% who hold a master's degree or higher. We have 6 teachers who've earned a national board certification in the last 3 years, and an additional person who's working towards that accomplishment and hopefully will be completed during this school year. You'll note some individual recognitions in both athletics and the arts with some of our faculty members. And I think it's particularly interesting to note that we have 4 faculty members who have been or will be trained this summer in something called the Harkness method of teaching. This is a manner in which the teacher literally brings their classroom environment kind of into a circle where they work with students to teach them how to have equal voice and opportunities in problem solving, collaborative work together in their learning. And it's something we're pretty proud of and I think rather unique. I'm going to start with some student accomplishments in athletics. Certainly very proud of our athletic teams. We offer our students 24 sports over the fall, winter, and spring seasons, including partnerships with area cities and towns in wrestling and girls hockey. You'll see several individual and team accomplishments on the slide from our fall and winter seasons, including a really exciting SMA title for the girls swim team and a state championship for our boys hockey team. Spring sports are still underway, and we welcome public support for our student athletes at all of those events. Additional highlights, we have an array of very active extracurricular clubs. They tend to be in 3 areas. One might be community service. The second is awareness. An example might be a community leaders club or a Red Cross club, or something that's more of a passion or a niche area, such as our robotics, TEDx, and the Outdoor Adventure Club. You can see a few highlights from this school year, such as our National Honor Society members completing over 2,200 hours of community service in our local area, and as well as some accomplishments from our World Quest team and the TA speech team. This year we had 24 athletes and partners in our Special Olympics Unified Sports Program. And then a nice bridge between our younger schools in Saco and TA is that many Thornton Academy students are part of fulfilling the someday requests, I guess, from the younger students. And one that's particularly interesting is we had some students who had, at the high school and at one of the elementary schools, had a shared passion for American presidents. And so members from the students from the history department went down and had some a time to share that passion and enjoy one another in that setting. We also have a partnership with the Olympia Snow Women's Leadership Institute, and just today, 5 members of the class of 2026 participated in the orientation and committed to that 3-year program. In the arts, we have several students that participate in volunteering in an art capacity. I believe it was just this weekend where we had some TA students do some face painting for the On the Wild Side event at Young School, and then I believe the Burns School Field Day coming up soon. We have some TA students also going to be volunteering. There's some digital design students that have created a lot of work for community partners, and you'll also note some wonderful recognitions for our students with the 2023 Scholastic Art Awards, as well as many of our theater students took home a really exciting 3rd place win in the One Act Festivals this year. Academic accomplishments at the high school level include performance on AP exams. Annually, the College Board bestows AP honors on students earning a particular score on one or more exam, and in 2022, TA had 18 students named AP Scholars with Distinction, 14 students named AP Scholars with Honors, 27 students named with AP Scholars, and then you can see on the slide the criterion base for each of those recognitions. Thornton, AP exam average scores exceeded Maine and national average in 13 courses this last year. I'll let you read the particular AP classes that met that honor. Before I advance to the next slide, I just wanted to share a little, similar to the Maine standardized assessment provided to students in younger grades in Saco, this year the required high school assessment shifted to the Maine through-year assessment for 10th graders, as this was the first year that the state of Maine was involved with that test. Results won't be released until the summer or perhaps the fall from the Maine Department of Ed. However, TA decided to include standardized testing for all of our 9th graders as well. This year, we administered the NWEA, again, a test probably familiar to this board, as well as our students who attend grades K in Saco. The intention was to utilize both cohort and individual scores to support data-informed decision with our instruction and with our interventions. And so on the next 2 slides, you will see the outcomes of both math and reading. We participated in both a fall and a spring administration, and two really important pieces that I think bridge the younger Saco schools and TA. The incoming 9th grade students during the fall administration, many of which were from Saco Middle School, performed above the national average, reflecting their progress in skill development at Saco Middle School, indicating that on average, Saco students are coming into Thornton Academy well prepared to manage the academic responsibilities of high school. So that's really terrific, and something important to note. Additionally, the same cohort that tested this spring just a couple of weeks ago continued to demonstrate growth through their first year of high school, with the cohort on average scoring at the 12th grade equivalency level and beyond.
Carol, so the data presented here, that is Saco students, or is that all?
All 9th grade students.
All 9th grade?
Yes.
Do we have the ability to pull a Saco students, because as you looked at the percentages, 58% of the students were Saco students. Do we have the ability to pull that data so that Marie would have that ability to look at, okay, Saco students particularly are here as we make plans around aligning curriculum, doing extra work, et cetera? What are the skills that we're deficient in?
I'm sure it's possible. How easy, I'm not sure, but I'm absolutely willing to look into it for you.
Thanks, Carol.
You're welcome. And this is the reading scores as well. So in terms of standardized test scores, really what that means is that the teachers have access to group and individual profiles of students' strengths and weaknesses to inform their instructional planning. TA has used these measures as well as additional measures to establish development of multi-tiered systems of support within our schools, with our most notable addition during this 22-23 school year is our Achievement Center. Just like to read the mission of our Achievement Center, or the purpose. The purpose of the TA Achievement Center is to create a community of support that empowers students by providing and developing skills, resources, and structure for them to achieve academic success. Students were able to access targeted supports in math and literacy, as well as focus on work completion and executive function skill development in their time in the Achievement Center. It's also a place that students can self-select to attend, so it might be that they and a group of their friends are working on a project, or perhaps they have having particular difficulty with a single assignment, or they're receiving peer tutoring, for example, in a content area. The ultimate goal of academic progress and success at the secondary level is to acquire credits towards graduation, and the Maine Department of Ed sets the formula for graduation rates. This slide indicates Thornton's graduation rates, and for 2022, that was 91.6% compared to the state average of 86.1%. It's important to note that this is for Maine residents only. That's how the DOE pulls that information. So the international students at TA have a higher graduation rate. However, our focus is not solely on this one data point, as the Department of Education, their formula doesn't indicate the thoughtful transition planning that sometimes needs to occur for students in a 5th year. We understand that there are multiple types of family needs or circumstances that require an alternative path for our students, and we proudly serve all of those needs for our Saco residents. Members of our student services team, so folks like our school counselors, our deans, our social workers, nurses, special educators, they understand the struggles that some students have had, and they're committed to helping meet those personal goals. And this has been very true, certainly through COVID, as we help to transition students to that post-secondary.
So I have a quick question.
Sure.
What is the actual graduation rate of students that receive those services that you were just speaking of? So if I have a child in the school that is under special education, what are the graduation rates around that, or the 5th year student?
I don't have those in front of me, but I certainly could get those for you.
That would be appreciated. Thank you.
Sure.
Just the same question, is it possible to pull graduation rates of Saco students only, just like the last question, just so that we could think about, as you think sometimes we know that high school graduation is around social emotional pieces. And
so 4-year completer in terms of for Saco students particularly?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be ideally the goal, is to look at, is that much different? Is that, 91.6% 5, or is that, 87 and something else is bringing that up? I think that would help us in our middle schools.
Absolutely.
One more question, I'm sorry to intervene. And I'm just asking this just to have a better understanding of graduation rates. Do any of these also have options for finding out more information if there were any children that were dismissed or, God forbid, expelled from TA? Do we have any of those totals as well to just have an understanding of that?
Withdrawals?
Yes.
Or expulsions? I imagine it would be the opposite, or the total, from 100%, but it's the way that the department creates the withdrawal. So there's an actual withdrawal data point, and it's not the same. It's because it's not specific to a 4-year cohort, which is how a 4-year completer has how the formula is created for the graduation. So it's not an apples to apples. If we were, if we wanted to look at some data around the number of students per year from Saco that have withdrawn or been expelled, it's certainly something we could dig into.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Carol, do they still
Oh,
do?
make sure I get those data points.
Do they still do that? At one point, we were doing a 6-year graduate. You know how you would have all those bands in NEO that you would have to fill out? Do they still do? I know we do the 5-year one. I don't think we do the one that's 6 years
I don't
anymore.
believe so. A really exciting part too, and this is really the end of my time here, although I'm happy to answer questions at any point, is talking about the post-secondary plans for our students. So this slide indicates where our students from the class of 2022, where they headed after they graduated from Thornton Academy. There were 82.4% of students entered either a 2- or 4-year college or university, so certainly we're looking at both the maroon and the gold or yellow portions of that pie. Another 1.2% went to the military or to a military academy, and 15.5% went straight into employment or a career apprenticeship, and there's less than 1% went to a non-US school after graduation.
I'm a couple slides behind.
Okay.
So going back to the RIT scores, and you had said that you can't specify if those, if the averages were for just Saco students. I was just curious, what would it take for SMS 8th graders to be able to take, TA classes, TA courses? Because, I mean, the numbers are pretty good now, but we don't know if, it seems like they would qualify, right? You do that at TAMS?
So there are some 8th grade students that participate in because of their enrollment at Thornton Academy Middle School, are able to participate in classes at the high school.
So would that be something that SMS students could have the eligibility for?
It's not something we've done in the past. What we have done is engaged in some one-to-one conversations or group conversations with staff at Saco Middle School to look at where someone's, for example, math is an easy area to look at, to assess skill development in the 8th grade. And then so many students from Saco Middle School will start their math experience not at the traditional Algebra 1, for example, but they'll start later on. We've had students from Saco Middle School that have started their math curriculum as high as Algebra 2 or even a pre-calculus their freshman year so that they can move through that math curriculum. We have not had students from Saco Middle School participate in courses when they were in 8th grade.
Okay, yeah, that's something I would like to have looked into. Maybe I'll talk to SMS a little bit more about it. But I mean, the numbers are trending above average now, and I'd like to see what the children could be capable of if they had high school level classes.
Thanks. I'm going to turn things back over to Mr. Menard.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up to that, we do have a cohort, I think it's about 6 students who are juniors right now from Saco Middle School who just finished AP Calculus BC, which is very impressive. So they were very well prepared. I think it was a GT program perhaps at Saco Middle School. And so we're encouraging them to pursue AP Stats, but there doesn't seem to be much interest there. But we'll see. We'll keep working on that. I'm just going to talk a little bit now about some of the financials and a construction project that is just around the corner that we're happy to announce. The next slide, I'm just going to try to simplify something that is fairly complex, but to give you all a general sense of the tuition payment to Thornton Academy. Most of you probably know that Saco pays a per pupil tuition rate. It's on a head count. And the tuition rate is set annually by the state of Maine. And in theory, it reflects the average per pupil high school expenditures across the state of Maine, excluding debt service, major capital outlay, special education, transportation, and CTE expenses. There is no regional adjustment for the MAT, so schools like Thornton Academy in northern Maine get the same MAT rate as we do here in southern Maine. And I think most of you know that salaries, as you all are facing, salaries here in southern Maine are certainly more competitive than other parts of the state. The FY23 total tuition rate, and that's what we call MAT and IVF combined, this fiscal year is $13,438.02 per student. And then there are additional special education costs which are calculated separately and in addition to that standard tuition rate. The tuition rate is announced in December, which is halfway through the fiscal year. And I know that creates a real challenge, certainly for us, and I'm sure for Superintendent Ray. When we build our budgets, I can tell you that I anticipate that the MAT rate is going to be really low, so I can cover it, and I'm sure he probably anticipates it's going to be very high, so he can cover it. And then we both find out in December, and one of us is happy and the other one's disappointed. But it's the system that we have, and we make it work as best as we can. Continuing and talking about that MAT tuition rate, if you notice the next slide, which is pretty interesting, I call it the W graph. And this is a graph over the last 15 years of how that MAT tuition rate has fluctuated, and you can see the increases. And again, neither Saco nor Thornton Academy knows what that rate increase will be until December of the fiscal year. So sometimes either party is scrambling, and hopefully both of us have budgeted accordingly that we can absorb either of those shifts. I just want to kind of point over to the far right of that. Actually, this won't work on a digital screen. I just realized that. To the far right, and you can see from FY21 to FY23, in just a short period of time, FY21, the rate increase was 0.03, and then here you are, 2 years later, it spikes at 6.7%. So it's sort of these wild swings, which again makes it challenging, I think, for both parties to try to plan accordingly in terms of what that tuition will be. And of course, the other major factor in determining is enrollment. So it's primarily the tuition rate, and then whether or not we think the Saco enrollment coming into Thornton Academy will be up or down that year. The next slide looks at some per pupil expenditures, and when you look at what Saco pays Thornton Academy, I think you'll see that TA is a good value. This is all FY22 data on Saco schools and neighboring towns, which is taken from the DOE's online ESSA dashboard. And if you look in the top yellow box, you'll see what TA spends to educate a student. And this is, again, FY22. This excludes our debt service, which is about $1,237 per student. So this is educational expenses. And if you look at that number of $1,833 versus the elementary schools in Saco, you'll see that we're in line. Educating students is expensive. And I think most of you know there are lots of variables that impact per pupil expenditures, and that can swing dramatically in a couple of years. Certainly the experience level and education level of your faculty as a primary driver, class sizes, specialty programs, lots of variables that go into that formula. The bottom yellow box shows what we call Saco payment to TA. This is the MAT and IVF tuition rate. This includes special education and 504 costs, these additional services, divided by the number of students, and I believe in FY22 is 884 students. And so I'm just going to direct your attention to the far right, the largest yellow box over on the right. You'll see that Saco paid Thornton Academy about $3,400 less than what our actual per pupil expense was. And I think you can see we paid less than perhaps some neighboring towns. And so, on our part, we have to subsidize that, make up that, that shortfall with our fundraising efforts. On rare occasions, it might be a drawdown from the endowment, but primarily our private school students. And, you know, I've been at Thornton Academy, like I said, for 28 years, and when we started the boarding program, we started it for a lot of reasons. We wanted to bring diversity to our community. And, but another factor was we realized that that would be another revenue source that could help subsidize the cost of education of local students and allow us to have the breadth of programming that we do offer on a modest MAT rate. And the final topic I want to talk about is the new athletic complex, or the field house. And again, we've talked about this publicly for a number of years. It's been a long time coming. The board had planned to do this for probably about a decade now. But before we tackled this project, we wanted to make sure that we took care of all our other infrastructure needs, primarily our academic spaces. We created a new media center, a library, classroom wings, a STEM center, et cetera. We wanted to make sure that we took care of the academic programming before we took care of our athletic complex. And you can see, here's an overview of our campus map. And for those of you who have been in Linnell Gymnasium, and many of you are probably going to be there for Saco Middle School's graduation, I don't have to tell you it's old. It was built in 1963, and it is tired. It's a wonderful space, a lot of great memories there. But it is I believe it's the oldest gym in the SMAA, the league in which we compete. It might be the oldest gym in this part of the state. And it's worn out, and quite frankly, it's too small. The enrollment at Thornton Academy in 1963 was about 660 students. As I showed you earlier, we're more than double that size. And you can imagine what's happened to the athletic program from 1963 to where we are today, the expansion of athletics, Title IX, all kinds of wonderful things that have happened, but we don't have the space. We spent a lot of time looking at doing engineering studies, environmental studies about renovating Linnell, and if you ever try to renovate an old building, you probably understand that sometimes it's cost prohibitive. So we are going to keep Linnell. We may do some minor updates to it, but it'll be primarily a practice space and secondary athletic space. So the plan is, if you look on this map, you can see in the far right-hand side of the slide is Route 1, and then you can see the stadium, and then just below the stadium, you see the track, is that large maroon rectangle, and that is where the new athletic center, or the field house, is going. And we're doing this project in a couple of stages, and we've already begun what we call stage 1. To keep the cost of this project reasonable, the field house is going to be, basically, it's a prefab steel building. And so we certainly we want to have athletic space, a track, competition courts, but rather than build out the building even larger to put fitness rooms and weight rooms, we've decided to repurpose some existing space. So again, adjacent to the right of that maroon rectangle is a current maintenance building. It's right next to the bleachers to the stadium, and we are going to renovate that space. It's an existing building, and put new fitness room, weight room, multi-purpose space right there, adjacent to the stadium, which makes sense, and adjacent to the new field house. And if you look way over to the left of your slide, you see a smaller rectangle, and that building has already gone up. If you walk on the Eastern Trail, you're going to walk right by this new red-colored steel building. Again, it's very efficient. You pour a slab, you put the steel building goes up, and that's going to be our new maintenance facility. So again, phase 1 is underway. The next slide are just a couple of renderings, broad renderings of some of these spaces. So if you look at the image on the left, that's what the renovated new maintenance building right next to the stadium will look like. Again, that will be converting that building into strength and fitness space. And then on the bottom right-hand of the slide, you can see a rendering of what the facade of the building will look like. So again, that'll be a steel building. We'll put a brick facade on it to blend in with the brick architecture of our campus. The first floor will have about approximately 36,000 square feet of new space. And we're really excited about the opportunity to provide this resource to our community as well. I think most of you know that we always open up our campus to the community, our tennis courts, the walking track, the Eastern Trail. I've had conversations with Parks and Rec about using this space, and I'd certainly extend that invitation to the Saco School Department as well. If you folks are short on athletic space or large events, we'll now have Linnell Gymnasium and this field house. So I think it's going to be something that we certainly intend for the community to use and enjoy. And the last slide shows a little bit about what again, these are just some rough renderings of what the field house will look like. So on the left-hand side, you have an image of that first floor, and you can see those are 3 basketball, volleyball, tennis courts, multi-purpose courts. You'll see that the center court runs perpendicular to the other 2. That will be the competition court. The idea is that it'll be a hard rubberized surface. It's multi-use. We want to be able to do anything on this, whether it's a cross practice, indoor soccer, whatever it might be. And for games, we're looking into basically a portable wood floor, sort of like they do at the Civic Center, something that you can bring in and set up during basketball season. You'll see some large shaded areas on either side of that center court, and those are retractable bleachers. And at the top of the screen, top of that image, you'll see there's a 55-meter straightaway sprint track. When I was in high school at TA, I did run indoor track, and we used to run through the science building. We would run down the hall, up the stairs, down the hall, and down the stairs again. If you are a sprinter and you want to run in our gym, you have to run from one corner out the other corner, and be careful that you don't hit the vending machine. So this is long overdue. We look forward to having a space where our sprinters can practice and not be encumbered. The other image that you see on the right is a mezzanine layer. So this is the second floor, but again, it's a mezzanine track. It's a 200-meter elevated track, and we're really excited about opening that up to the community as well. I know in the past I've talked with Gene Saunders of Age Friendly Saco, and we'd love to invite our senior population and others if they want to come walk on the track in the morning. And then, we're looking at hours of during the day or on the weekends, and somehow, opening this space up to the public to use, particularly in the wintertime. Certainly in the spring and fall, the public is welcome to walk on our track that we have on campus. And that's all we have for today. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about anything we've talked about, and I'm sure that Carol would be happy as well.
School Board Member Archie.
Yeah, this looks really exciting. I've been in the old gym. I know it could use an update. I was just curious how you guys are doing with classrooms. Do you feel like you're kind of outgrowing the classrooms too?
That's a great question. A number of years ago, we were. And there was, as I mentioned earlier, 5 years ago, we had 100 more Saco students. And we had more Arundel students at the time. Dayton enrollment had been pretty stable. So we were looking at a place where we were overcrowded. And so in 2016, we built the STEM edition. And so we built 4 new labs and 4 new classrooms. And that was a real concern. We have the space now. The local enrollment has gone down, and boarding enrollment has gone down a little bit. Again, we have about 200 fewer students at the academy now than we had maybe 5 or 6 years ago. So we have ample classroom space, and looking into the future, things could change. I know there are housing developments they're talking about in town, but we don't see an increase in our local enrollment in the near future.
So with that fluctuation, in the last 5 years, what is the average class size right now?
That's a good question. A couple things. It varies. If you're in AP Mandarin Chinese, it's going to be small. If you're in World History, it's going to be larger. I think at one point, I'm going to look at Carol, maybe it was around 22, 21, 19, but there may be a class of 25 or 26 kids in it, perhaps.
How many core classes do you think are in the high 20s?
Yeah, core classes probably low to mid-20s. I think some of the more specialty classes sometimes depends. I mean, if you have a course class, it's got to be larger than some others.
Right. I'm not from Saco, and I had different resources available to me when I was growing up. I have to say that I'm slightly disappointed at the gear towards college grad, classes. What are you offering to those that don't want to go to college?
Well, we certainly have a relationship with the Regional Center of Technology.
Yeah, how are those numbers?
Those numbers right now, I think we start off with 75. I think there might be 65 Saco kids. I think there's a bit of a dip in the second semester, and then we have students from Dayton and Arundel that attend. I think, again, they're primarily, yeah, I think we had 95. Yeah. So
I didn't mean to pry,
Oh, no.
I was
No,
wishing
no.
it was in the presentation, that was
Yeah,
all.
no, sure. I mean, we could come back and go another hour. I mean, we want to be mindful of your time. There's a lot. We have the Center of Technology classes are primarily available to juniors and seniors.
Yep.
So I think you look at maybe 95 to 100 juniors and seniors, that's about 14% of the juniors and seniors will take a course at the Regional Center of Technology. And then we have other programs, what we call core classes. We have foundation classes. We have a lot of specialty classes for students. If you're interested in, fish and wildlife, and if you look through the program of studies, you have a sense it's 200 plus offerings, and try to offer something for everyone as much as it's feasible.
I appreciate it.
Sure.
School board member Problem.
I have a couple financial questions. It was brought to my attention recently, there's a legislation passing called LD 100 that talks about private schools that have taken public tuition are obligated, if this passes, to provide statements, financial statements. So currently, if that passes, is that something you guys intend to do? And is there any update or anything to the city about having financials provided to Glennis? It was just a curiosity of mine.
Yeah, so historically, a number of years ago, schools like us were required to submit a letter from our auditor to the state saying that our financials were in good standing. At some point during the LePage administration, I'm trying to think what the commissioner was, it might have been Jim Ryer at the time, there was a move to remove that requirement. And so there's this new bill that's going through, and my understanding is that it came out of committee saying the old system worked, let's go back to that. And so we will submit a letter from our auditor to the DOE, and the auditing firm will notify the state what the status of our financials.
And is that something that our city can have access to this year? I don't know if that's something, I know it's not usually traditional, I'm just curious.
We've never provided our
Okay.
audited financials.
Okay. Okay. Okay, good to know. Yep, good to know.
And Thornton would not send that to the city, they would send it to the school
Jeremy. Oh, okay.
superintendent or the finance
Gotcha. Okay.
director. It would only come to the city as part of the budget process.
Okay. And then I have a second question. So I'm just curious, because I've had a couple people reach out to me about the free and reduced lunch program, and I understand, given that Thornton Academy is a private institution, you're not obligated to, by under any means, accept the new national funding. So I'm curious, given how wonderful your school is that something you would reconsider doing potentially? And if so, yes or no regarding kind of what that looks like? And then is there something existing currently that you guys have to replace that, given that you guys aren't currently working towards getting funding from the national for the free reduced lunch program? And what does that look like for students? Because I know must be a population of disadvantaged students that do attend Thornton Academy that I know you guys work really hard to make equal opportunity. But I just wanted to kind of get a better idea of what that looks like. And because I know I'm sure you guys must work really hard to reduce stigmatization and that sort of thing. We don't want to have a stigma for a kid who doesn't have let's say, the equal lunch. So I'm just curious what that looks like, and who would the parents reach out to access that if should be needed?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking that question. We certainly have had a conversation with Superintendent Ray and Councilor Fortune, myself, and my board president this fall to talk about that. And I know it was discussed here publicly, but happy to sort of reiterate what we do. So historically, before this plan was available, we would sort of model our system on what every other public school did, which was you have the free lunch and the reduced lunch and the federal guidelines. We've never offered a reduced option. We've always said if you fall within that boundary, you get a free lunch. So we wouldn't distinguish that. If you needed the aid, we figured you needed the aid, and we're just going to do that. So what we did recently, in understanding that times are tough for a lot of folks, we moved that federal poverty line qualification from 130 to 235. So if you're a family that would fall within that, you get free breakfast and lunch. We sent out, when we did that, we sent a notice out to our families who maybe historically would not have qualified. And at the start of every school year, in a welcome packet, we send this out to families saying, if you believe you would qualify or you need free and reduced lunch, please let us know. The other thing I think is important to note is that because this is self-funded, we fundraise specifically for this. We have an account called the Headmaster Student Assistance Fund, and we really appeal to our alumni to help support this effort. We have 4 social workers, 8 counselors, 4 deans, 2 nurses, and as Carol said, 83 teachers at the high school that are passionately concerned about the well-being of our students. And so if any of them suspect or believe at any point that any student needs a free breakfast and lunch, we give it to them. No questions asked. They don't have to fill out forms. We don't even call home. Because the reality is we know that there may be families that are struggling, maybe families that are too proud. There are all kinds of circumstances out there. And the last thing we want to do is to have a student be impacted by that. So it's very simple. Social worker, secretary says, I noticed so-and-so, they don't seem to have anything to eat, whatever it is. We give their name, and it's a free meal. Again, no questions, no forms. The other thing we do is most of our kids have ID cards with a number, so when they go to the CAF, they swipe it. If they forget, they can tell the name, and the people at the register will pull them up. So there's no different process, there's no different line, there's no different food. Kids can go up and get it, and nobody knows, there's no food shaming, nobody knows who's eating, who isn't. I do lunch duty, I try to do lunch duty every day. I go down, I have my lunch, I usually stand there for 1 or 2 lunch waves. And there's just no way of knowing. No one knows, the people at the register don't know. They may be the only ones who key in something different.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Good to know. I just wanted to be able to point anyone that comes brought to my attention in the right direction.
And we understand there are families that this might be something that's short-term. And again, we want to treat everybody with dignity, and we can take care of it and not have people jump through lots of hoops. We want to take care of kids and families.
The parameters, you said you changed the parameters? I
So-
didn't catch that.
Yeah, so traditionally what still happens in other states with federal guidelines is 130% of the poverty lines. If you fall within that, you're eligible. We've increased that threshold from 130 to 235 to sweep in more families that might be on the cusp. Sure. And the community's been very generous in recognizing that and supporting our efforts to help these at-risk kids.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
School Board Member Gale.
Just one quick question and just a couple of comments. Thank you so much for coming to present. Thank you to the board members who are here and taking the time out of your evening to present. I hope next year we can have a similar update report, because I think we've all found it very valuable. And looking at the student accomplishments, I guess there's the thank you for helping out with the Some Days. That's awesome, and I know that made those kiddos' day. And then I just wanted to also highlight the partnership with the Olympia Snow Women's Leadership Institute. That's terrific, and I hope that continues at Thornton, and the engagement and opportunities for those students too. Just a quick question, could you kind of summarize and give just high level what the impacts and what you've been doing to address some of the new neighbors that have come here over the past year? I'm sure that had a huge impact to you and
Sure.
what you do.
Yeah, did you want to talk about that, Mark? Carol tends to oversee more of our student support. Go ahead.
In terms, are you looking specifically for kind of how we've welcomed them into the community and what?
Yep.
Perfect. So, not unlike the other Saco schools, I mean, this town, or city, excuse me, was new to welcoming so many asylum-seeking and refugee families all at once, and so we wanted to make sure that we embraced and understood, and what's not unique to TA is that we have students from many different countries, different cultures. However, it is unique, and it was a challenge, continues to be a challenge to have so many students and families that have language acquisition needs. So part of how we support that, we have a team of teachers and staff who get together on a regular basis, and we've really just kind of went month to month, and we said, what's coming up? So at the start of the year, it was orientation. How do we make sure that our students have the information that they need? What's it like to be a TA student? What does going to a pillar assembly, which is just an all-school assembly we have monthly, quarterly, excuse me, how do they know what to do and where to sit? And so we've been fairly strategic, but recognizing each season of the school has something different. Certainly at the start of the school year, making sure that students understood how to access free breakfast and lunch was really important. We helped with some clothing donations during the winter months, being able to make sure that they were outfitted appropriately. So last week we had a choral concert. We were able to transport the students and their families so that they could participate in that celebration at the end of the year. There's a Saco full-time multilingual teacher that's employed by Saco that comes to our school and manages the specific multilingual education with those students. She also has students, not only the new Mainers, but students that reside in Saco who also qualify for that service are on her caseload and in her classes. We've done a tremendous amount of professional development with our staff to help them better understand. It's a learning process. It continues to be a struggle, and we continue to learn, and hopefully that enhances as we continue to work with families. I lost my train of thought, I apologize. Catholic Charities, certainly the sponsoring agency to help support the new Mainers that are in the hotel. We have nice connection with them, and we participate. I think Jeremy and Meg often are on some of those group calls with other municipal folks so that we can have a sense of what's happening for them outside of the school. Education for us is the whole pie, right? But for thinking about orienting these families into our city, it's just a slice of all of the things that happen. So, it's a learning process. I'm proud of the work that we've done, and we still have some work to do. You're welcome.
School. School Board Member Johnston.
Thank you. Mr. Headmaster, my question has to do with counselors at Thornton Academy, guidance counselors, and what sort of a student number that each of them, first of all, how many do you have? Secondly, what number of students are they responsible to work with?
Yeah. So we currently have 8 counselors. We have 4 social workers. I believe the National Association of School Counselors recommends, I think, caseloads of 1 to 250. Our caseloads are just under 200, so below the recommendations. National averages are even higher than that. So, our members our counselors are active members of that association, and I think that's we want to be mindful of those recommendations.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last thing.
We want to be mindful of those recommendations and keep our caseloads manageable,
right,
and well below the recommended ratios.
Is there, I'm reflecting on when my children were at Thornton Academy, but I'm wondering what sort of a schedule you have through the year, or each one of the 4 years that students are there, to sort of make sure that kids do get to see their guidance counselors when it's appropriate. I can remember some sorts of situations where kids tended to fall through the crack and they maybe didn't show up for their appointment with a guidance counselor or whatever. So I'm just wondering what kind of safety net you have in place to make sure that students do get to see their guidance counselors as is appropriate.
Yeah, I'm sure that there are still those challenges are still going to still exist. There's no question about that. Sometimes we have students who they have struggles coming to school, absenteeism, things like that, and sometimes it's harder to sort of make those things happen. But I think our counselors are very intentional about trying to ensure that they connect with those students. Certainly in that freshman year, we want to make sure there's that one-to-one connection. And then they do a lot of things just from a pragmatic standpoint in groups. If there's information that they can be shared, which is not personal or not specific to them, then perhaps they'll go, maybe get 8 or 10 of them at a time and just give them updates. Here's where we are in freshman year. Here's some things to be thinking about. You're sophomores now. There's some career interest inventory surveys for you to take and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I think, our counselors are very thoughtful, and I know they work very hard to get to know their students, but we know that there are students who certainly need those supports, and that's something we work on, and we hope to prevent kids from falling through the cracks, excuse me. But that's something where, we have to work on every day.
Well, I thank you for your answers, and I guess I'm just hoping that it gets better and better in terms of being able to make sure that kids, are getting the attention that they need, even perhaps if they don't always want it.
And I'll tell you, and there's no secret to this. I'm sure we see it certainly in other schools, but there's a real concern about mental health needs of young people today. And we have 4 outstanding social workers, and we're so appreciative of the work that they do. These last couple of years have been very, very challenging for them. As a school community, we've dealt with some loss, which is unfortunate, but our counseling staff have tremendous faith in them and gratitude for the work that they do. And that's a tough job, and I'm sure it's a tough job in the K-8 system and in any school system. I appreciate what they do.
Well, I appreciate your bringing up the social workers as well,
Yeah.
because that is very pertinent to the well-being of the students, and it has been a rough few years for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any further questions? Thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time.
That brings us to item F, a first reading of policies. Policy KF, community use of Saco school facilities. Policy EFE, competitive food sales, sales of foods in competition with the school food service program. Policy EHB, school records retention. Policy EF, free and reduced price food services. Policy EFBA, menu development options offer versus serve lunch concept. Policy EBCF, automated external defibrillators. Policy EEBB, use of private vehicles for school business. Policy GCI, professional staff development opportunities. And policy GCQC, resignation of school employees. Is there a motion? School Board Member Johnston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move we approve the first reading of policies KF, EFE, EHB, EF, EFBA, EBCF, EEBB, GCL, and GCQC.
Second.
Motion's made by School Board Member Johnston, second by School Board Member Preble. Any discussion? No discussion, roll call vote. School Board Member Archie?
Yes.
School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richard?
Yes.
School Board Member LaFortune?
Yes.
School Board Member Gale?
Yes.
School Board Member Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. That brings us to item 14. There's no other information this evening. Moving on to item 15, there is no executive session this evening. That brings us to item 16. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
School Board Member LaFortune, is there a second?
Second.
Second by School Board Member Richard. Any discussion? Roll call vote. School Board Member Archie?
Yes.
School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richard?
Yes.
School Board Member LaFortune?
Yes.
School Board Member Gale?
Yes.
And School Board Member Johnston.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0 to adjourn at 6:51. Have a great evening, everyone.